Hi, D&J Epic Quest listeners. Before we get to the episode, we want to take a moment to address the June 24th, 2022 Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. This decision stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion.
Everyone should have the freedom to decide what's best for themselves and their families, including when it comes to ending a pregnancy. The decision has dire consequences for individual health and safety and could have harsh repercussions for other landmark decisions.
Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans.
Learn more by visiting choice.crd.co. That's choice.crd.co. If you're able to support others, please consider donating to abortion funds.
We encourage you to speak up, take care, and spread the word. Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justin, or Soft Pillows, and this
is Derek, or Bird That Steals.
So, wasn't it one of our Twitter followers gave us some more insight on Whiskey Jack, right? Who is also, aka Bird That Steals.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Something
I have to go back and look, but they said that the Canadian Blue Jays also call the Whiskey Jack.
Yeah.
Blue Jays are kind of asshole birds, so maybe that makes sense.
And maybe they steal. Maybe they are birds that steal. I guess I don't know very much about birds. Outside of that, they're not really birds.
Yeah, they're still not real.
They're still not real, even though we debunked that last episode.
Yep.
But yeah.
So how was your weekend, man?
It was good. I went down to Mankato and visited my mom. Dropped off my kids with my mom to spend the weekend with her. And then I went and my stepmom and my dad had like a combined birthday party shindig. So we went down there and, ate some ham sandwiches with butter on them and potato salad.
Sounds about as Midwestern as you can get.
Yep. And some plain Jane Ruffles potato chips, no dip. They had cupcakes though. They were delicious. And then the lady and I had a date night. We went and saw the new Jurassic World movie.
What did you think?
It's nothing to write home about.
I mean, it wasn't terrible.
Right, it wasn't terrible. I mean, the one thing that I will give them credit for is they didn't follow like the same like movie archetype with the dinosaurs. Like everything starts off in like wonderment and merriment, and then death, destruction, and then resolve.
Yeah, it was. I felt. Well, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're good. I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Well, it's because I'm a jerk and interrupted you.
You're not an interrupting jerk. That is just the layout of a bad joke. You're good.
I thought there was like a lot going on in the movie. Like there's like dinosaurs just running around the world. People live with them, and then you got these. I guess this might be a little bit spoilerish for people who haven't seen it, but these locusts that are ravaging crops that are not from seeds from like this company that's trying to control the food supply. And then, yeah, I don't know. It seemed like there's too much. It could have been simplified a little bit, but it was still like I didn't think it was awful. I thought it was pretty good. It was decent.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining. Yeah, I don't know. I liked some of the new dinosaurs that were introduced, but I can't get behind the whole Allosaurus thing. He's a fucking pussy, in my opinion, compared to like T-Rex or Spinosaurus. So I feel like, they were definitely grasping for other dinosaurs that haven't been really in the spotlight as much as some of the others. But I guess that's just my opinion. I'm not really a big fan of the Jurassic World franchise. I really liked Kingdom because I thought it brought back like the sense of like you're on the edge of your seat kind of a thing with the Endoraptor. So I like that one the best.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember much from that one, but this one, like I like. There's a couple like throwbacks I noticed to like the original Jurassic Park movie, and there were definitely some parts where like I was like had a little bit of like terror, like holy crap, like it's kind of not like super scary, but like man, like that would be scary if I was in that position. It wasn't like over the top and like fake and stuff. I guess I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking.
No, I get what you're trying to describe, and I would agree with you there. But what about you? How was your weekend? Or
Um, it was pretty good. My wife and stepdaughter were out of town. They just got home here a few minutes ago. She had a dance competition a couple hours north of us up in St. Cloud. Um, they left Thursday night, and I'm watching my dad's dog here. They're out of town, so you might hear her time to time walking by, dog paws clapping on the floor, or might even hear her whining. So I apologized for that. Hopefully, it won't be too noticeable. But um, so I was home with the dog. I worked yesterday, and then came home and played some Skyrim for a while. I haven't played any video games in a while, and then went to a buddy's house and we watched Doctor Strange, Madness of the Multiverse, which was it was interesting. And then we watched Jackass Forever after that, which was a lot of dicks.
I can only imagine. I feel like each Jackass movie, there's more dicks.
It was. It's one of those you just have to see.
I think I'll pass on the wieners, but I'll still watch
it was funny, and a lot of the stuff was just like you couldn't pay me enough money to do any of this stuff. None of it.
Yeah, I know that the lady was watching the new Doctor Strange movie, and I wasn't paying attention. I have a hard time with Marvel movies or superhero movies. They're just so overdone to me. But I get the appeal. I understand why people like them, but I have a hard time relating.
You just you don't want to escape reality, huh?
I don't know if it's about escaping reality. I just like I don't know. It just feels like old. It just feels like the crusted sock underneath your bed. You know. Uh that's just my opinion. Like I said, I understand why people like them, but it's just like how many Thor movies are we gonna have? Like, or how many Hulk
three
movies
at
are we
least.
gonna have? Well, there's another one coming. It was in the preview for the Jurassic World movie we watched last night. So
yeah, Love and Thunder. That'll be the third one.
I thought there was already 3.
I don't. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe that is. I don't know. There's so many of them. Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
Right. And I don't know. It's just like, but you know,
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
You're right. I think it will be the fourth because there was the original one, and then there was Dark World,
And then
I
Ragnarok.
don't remember what the third one was called. Oh yeah, Ragnarok. That's the one that had the Hulk in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what do you say we start talking about this book we've been reading here for what 14, 15 weeks here?
Yeah. Yes. Let's before I get into it, I just want to let everybody know that listens that my neighbor who pounds on the wall is finally moving. So
We are excited about this.
I am so fucking ecstatic. Like it's about time. So but yeah, let's hit it. I guess you wanna take her away a better place.
Sure thing. We have we kind of have two. Yeah, what are they called again? Epigrams.
Epigraphs.
Epigraphs.
You were close.
So I guess we have one We have one for the new subbook here, and then we have one for the chapter. So the one for the subbook here reads, "Beyond these thin hide walls, a child sits before her on worn silk. A deck is arrayed. She cannot yet speak, and the scenes before her she's never before seen in this life. The child gazes upon a lone card named Obelisk. The stone gray, she can feel its roughness in her mind. Obelisk stands buried in a grassy knoll, like a knuckle protruded from the earth, past and future. This child's eyes are wide with terror, for cracks have appeared in the stone of stones, and she knows the shattering is begun. Silver Fox, Outrider, Hurlokel, Sixth Army." Just reading that, I feel like, well, I guess maybe we can come back to that since we haven't talked about it yet. But the epigraph for the chapter says, "I saw them on the shores, the deepening pits of their gaze, vowed immortal war against the sighing calm of jagged seas." Gothos Folly. So, section 1 of, well, this will be episode 15, right? Chapter 14. We have Adjunct Lorne feeling the exhaustion and tiredness slip away from her. She was not used to feeling carelessness, and it had left her a little bit shaken. The Gadrobi Hills on the horizon. The Gadrobi Hills appeared on the horizon. If they were successful at the Jagat Barrow, then everything else would almost assuredly be a success as well. Toole wouldn't shut the fuck up. Though he talked about many things, he would not divulge any information that would be important to the Empire. She could feel something coming for the IMAS, and maybe it was connected to the barrel. That was a spooky thought. Toole said in his ears that he's come to recognize human emotions, and that she's been frowning for a few days, and he wondered if that was significant. Lauren snaps at him and says, "It's not." She says what is significant is that she doesn't know enough about what they're doing. How had this barrow not been found in 3,000 years of hunting? Toole says they will find the stone that marks the barrow, but the barrow will not be there. Lauren doesn't understand. Toole explains he is born of an elder worn, Talan. It is not only a source of magic, it is also a time. So Lauren asks if the barrow exists in a different time than theirs. Toole says no, there is no parallel time different from their own. That time is gone, but is more like a different flavor. He says the Jagat who entombed the tyrant are from a different elder Warren, but, quote, elder is a relative term to the Warrens of this age. Jagat, Amtos, Felak is not elder when compared to Telan. They are the same flavor. The barrow has not been found because it is Amtos Felak, a Warren now lost to this world. But Toole's Telan Warren touches Amtos Felak, and he can reach it. Any Telan IMS could. But he was chosen because he has no clan. He is completely alone. Well, why is this important? Because freeing the tyrant could be devastating. If it doesn't listen or escapes their control, it could destroy the entire continent. It could enslave all life and would do so if it was permitted. If a bonecaster had been selected instead of Toole, the tyrant could enslave the bonecaster and it would be virtually unstoppable, probably killing many of the gods as well. So if Toole was enslaved, since he has no clan, it would not have any effect beyond him. It would not affect any of his bloodkin. So Lawrence says that Toole is expendable. Toole replies that this is correct. Lauren asks how they can control it. They don't, and that is a big gamble. And that the Lord of Moonspawn will have to intervene. He might be capable of stopping the tyrant, but it will be at a large cost to him and weaken the Lord of Moonspawn severely. But he can do the one thing the tyrant fears. He can enslave the tyrant. Great. So the tyrant will work for Lord of Moonspawn. Lord of Moonspawn. No, Toole says. The enslavement would be by his hand, but it is also beyond his control. Lauren says he is a high mage and Tisty Andy. Tool laughs and says he is Anomander Rake, son of darkness and wielder of Dragnipur. Dragnipur is a sword from the age before light, and that darkness is the goddess of the Tisty Andy. Lauren says that's just great. The Empress sure knows how to pick her enemies, and their pets' heads are falling off too. Tool makes a surprising comment that the Tisty Andy will regret coming to this world. Lauren is like, what? Hold the fuck up. They came to this world? From where and why? The Tisty Andy were of Corald Ghislaine, the Warren of Darkness, and it was alone and untouched. But the goddess of darkness grew lonely, so she wanted something outside of herself, and this is how the light was born. The Tisty Andy saw this as a betrayal and rejected her. Some say they left by choice, others say they were cast out. And while the Tisty Andy mages still use the Corald Ghislaine Warren, they are no longer of it. They have embraced another Warren, Starval Demolaine, the first Warren, who belonged to the dragons.
There is so much like world building and like information in this section. I loved all of it, and I feel like it took me a couple of reads to like really understand what is going on. And while I probably may not understand it fully, I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp. What would you think or say?
There was a ton, and it was really quite interesting to read, and obviously I pared this down, so somebody who's read this is going to know, or they may remember that there's more description and everything here, but just like the coolest thing was, I thought, was like, though the stone that will mark the barrel like just marks it, but it's not really there, and that's kind of what I feel like must be the obelisk in the epigraph for the subbook. That was kind of my thought after reading it.
That's what I thought too.
This, and then we get all this news. This, we've seen some pretty powerful people in this book already. Taishren, even Hairlock, all pretty powerful. But this tyrant could destroy the whole continent, could enslave every living thing, and Anomander Rake, maybe the most powerful character that we've come across so far. I kind of think
he's kind of coming
that we fit.
Yeah, to be revealed as yeah.
That we've at least met in person. I think he must be the strongest. And he might have a shot at controlling this tyrant, but maybe not too. Like this thing could kill like gods with ease. It sounds like. It's all wild.
Yeah, and it just my question is like, well, maybe it's not really a question, but more of a comment on like, it kind of seems like maybe a suicide mission, doesn't it? It doesn't seem like they're going in with really any type of knowledge, which goes back to some of the previous chapters where I think it was Baruch in his conversations with, I would imagine, Krupp, as basically like, it's not good. Like, it's been unsuccessful in hands of those who could not control it, and there were devastating consequences. So I don't imagine things going well.
Yeah, it's almost, I feel like they're playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun, like a fully loaded gun.
Right.
Like this isn't going to go well, and we know it, but we're still going to pull the trigger and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah. So I guess, yeah, that's a better way to put it than like a suicide mission, because there's still a chance with Russian roulette.
Not a good chance.
No, definitely not a good chance. But, and there's another section in this book that'll kind of tie back into some of the information here, which we'll eventually get to. But I just thought it was cool, the whole explanation of the Talan Warren and the Jaghuts Warren, the whole flavor thing. I guess I just always go back to like, fruit versus like artificial drinks, you know, kind of different things, but still along the same like quote unquote flavor.
Right, but it's still like I feel like it's definitely a neat way to describe it, but it doesn't. I don't feel like it totally makes sense either yet, and maybe in later books it'll make more sense. But uh, it certainly was a cool way to describe something.
Yeah, it was a very interesting way, and Steven Erickson is great with the way that he uses words, and I'm absolutely fascinated by it. And I wish that I could speak like that, just in normal conversation. But I guess the way that I interpret it was that they exist on like the same plane, but they were just accessed by different people. But through proximity, those other people were able to see or sense or tap into those other Warrens that were not their own, which makes sense because, being that they're elder Warrens, those who use more, I guess, modern Warrens wouldn't have any way of knowing because they're completely different flavors or having a way to tap
Yeah,
into it.
right.
Unless they go the hairlock route, which that was also kind of a Russian roulette move.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
My guess.
I don't know that I have a ton else on. I mean, other than like you should probably just read this, read this book, and read this stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Did you have any like thoughts about the darkness, the Corralled Galen, and the Tistiande? Uh, how Tool was explaining how the Tistiande were not from here. Did you have any thoughts on that at all?
It's
Just
just almost like they lived in like a void.
well, I kind of get like I don't know. Big Bang is probably the wrong way to explain it, but it kind of seems like the Tistiande or just the I guess the Queen of Darkness, right? Just I don't know. I guess there's nothing more to it, but the way that I deduce it is like darkness, lonely, sad, depressed. So her wanting more from herself to essentially betray who it is that follows her to create something the exact polar opposite of herself, which is light. And then people getting pissed off and feeling betrayed, switching to a completely different Warren or, you know, flavor of magic. Uh, I just thought that was cool. And again, it kind of reveals more of kind of like the backstory to the Tistiandi. And I can only imagine that Anomander Rake, being the son of darkness, is the son of the queen who made light itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was reading this, it said "Son of Darkness." I just like, oh, he's Ozzy Osbourne, except he's clearly not because he's this big hulking black guy, and Ozzy Osbourne's about as white as you can get. But they're both called the Son of Darkness, I suppose.
Maybe there'll be a reference to him eating a bad head later on.
Yeah, maybe. But I think you're right. I mean, the Son of Darkness, and darkness is the goddess. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty logical and makes sense.
Right. But here's my question is did Anomander Rake stay with the Kurald Galen Warren, or does he use the Starvalad Demelane Warren, or both? Because he clearly has a sword, Dragon Purr, which, from what I understand, was forged in darkness based on the previous chapter. So even though it has like dragon, give or take, in the word itself, I don't actually think that it is related to the Dragon Warren of the Starvalad Demelane.
I guess I had not really thought of that.
I think of weird shit. This is what I do when I read. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if blah blah blah.
I love hearing your ideas.
They're pretty far-fetched, and I'm probably way off. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting that, I'm starting to get the feeling based on the very beginning of this chapter that dragons actually do exist, because we've got Cole drunkenly talking about them. We've got Krupp reading some manuscript that describes them. We've got the sword dragon purr, which again probably doesn't relate to them. And then we're also told by Tool in this section that the Warren the Tistiande now used because of the Queen Darkness's betrayal belonged to dragons. So did they take over this Warren, and then like did they enslave dragons? Like are yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess that's just kind of where my train of thought rolls. So it's very likely, based on this information, I would confidently deduce that there are dragons on Moonspawn. And I think Anomander
Or
Rake is
somewhere, at the very least, somewhere.
right. Yeah. So I'm excited to see when they get introduced. Um, Hopefully, I'm not wrong or way off. But yeah, I think it'll be exciting.
We'll just have to do what we keep doing, read and find out.
That's right. That's all you can do.
Or you could just listen to us.
Or you could just listen to us. Yes. I mean, I feel that our summaries are great and wonderful and all that, but at the end of the day, they're just summaries. I'm sure that there's probably some very important things that we leave out because they don't really belong in a summary. So I'd recommend reading and listening to us. Yeah.
Yes. I agree.
But yeah,
Uh,
I'm ready to move on if you have no further thoughts on this first section.
no, I don't really have any other thoughts other than like I just keep getting like the thoughts that Animander Rake's just like an absolute badass. I mean, obviously we've seen he's pretty fucking badass already, but like I feel like we're just gonna keep seeing more things, and we're like holy crap, who's messing with this guy? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like who's going to be able to stand up to Animander Rake? Who's going to be able to take him down, so to speak?
Like he's called the Son of Darkness. Like, kind of sounds like you're like top of the class.
Right, and it kind of, I mean, now that you're talking about it, it kind of seems like he's got like, what I would consider a triple threat, right? He's got a sword forged in darkness before I can assume that there was even light. So it's old as fuck. And it sounds like this sword takes and enslaves souls, right? Based on the last chapter. He is a high mage and he's the son of darkness. So I feel like he's definitely got a lot of abilities, which going back to the siege on Pale kind of makes that seem even more fucked up in a way, right? Knowing how powerful he really is just kind of aligns or brings more, I guess, to me, more vision of the destruction that actually happened at Pale.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree.
But yeah, I guess with that we can move on to this next section here.
Yeah, I think we both had some pretty decently long sections here to start out, and then they kind of go back and forth a little bit after that. So this will be probably a little bit of a quicker episode, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think so
Still
too.
still plenty to unpack.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I feel like there was only 5 sections in here, and I feel like you got 3, whereas I got 2. So
That's how it goes sometimes.
that's true. But yeah. So this next section, Murillo halted his mule. Krupp and Crocus were ahead, already reaching the Worry Crossroads. He turned to look behind and saw Call. Murillo sighs and thinks to himself how miraculous Call's decision to join them was. His thoughts travel to what Call could potentially do if he found out about Murillo and Ralik's plan, and wonders if Call has suspected anything. Call, adorned in his armor, appeared, and a bastard sword appeared almost nightly Cole catches up to Murillo, and they encourage their mounts forward and catch up to the group ahead. When they do, Krupp is talking and annoyingly expressing his opinion on the journey ahead. Krupp was telling Crocus to not look so glum and to look at things as a mighty adventure. Crocus threw up his hands in frustration, telling the group that he doesn't understand what they're even doing out there and why he agreed to come along was beyond him. Murillo addresses Crocus by attempting to capture his intrigue and telling Crocus that he has always been interested in their dealings outside of the city. Crocus replies that he was under the understanding that they all worked for a merchant, but he doesn't see a fucking merchant out here. Crocus, being a whiny little bitch, goes on to complain about how they are all riding mules outside of Cole, and why didn't anybody give him a sword? Murillo laughs or chuckles at this, but pleads for Crocus to stop his bitching, and explains that they are indeed agents for a merchant, and that this particular adventure is them seeking an unusual type of merchandise that they are acquiring. Krupp interjects and explains to Crocus that they are out here on behalf of their employer, Alchemist Baruch. Crocus indignantly rebuttals by asking Krupp why Master Baruch couldn't afford horses for them all. Krupp talks about a mishap with someone at the stable and begins to explain that they are out there to observe only, and that the sword, armor, and even Murillo's rapier were of no use for their mission. Crocus appears to be satisfied, but asks what it is they're supposed to observe. Krupp goes into a long tangent about the possibilities of what they would observe. Cole interrupts Krupp during this to ask who has the water skins. Krupp then makes a well-articulated bash on Cole, to which Cole ignores, but then addresses Crocus's complaining by telling him that he is getting paid and that the excitement is the last thing that they are looking for, or any type of excitement is the last thing that they want. He ends by wishing Rallick was there, as he would feel a whole lot better. Crocus, still being a salty bitch, takes offense to this and downplays himself in the process. Cole rudely reassures Crocus that with his skills as a thief, those skills are valuable, unlike himself or even Murillo, and with a verbal jab back at Krupp, which would make Crocus the most qualified to be there. Krupp makes a comment about his talents with his brain and his intelligence, striking back another jab of mockery towards Cole. Cole ignores this again to whisper to Crocus that the reason he's wearing all this armor is because when Krupp is in charge, he doesn't feel safe unless he's prepared for war. Crocus then asks the group what is it that they're supposed to be looking for. Murillo explains to Crocus that they'll know when they see it and nods to the hills rising in the east. After a time of silence, Crocus kind of like understands and says, Gadrobi Hills? Are we following a rumor? Murillo stiffened, but it was Krupp that responded and answered the question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I had a lot. Well, maybe not a lot, but I had a few things with this section. But did you have any thoughts?
I remember when I was reading this that, God, where was it? When they're talking about what they were looking for. I feel like everybody must be kind of looking for this marker, right? For the barrel.
I mean,
that was kind of the sense that I got.
Yeah, at this point,
everybody's trying to find the tyrant.
Right. That seems to be kind of where the story is like. And I feel like being that the story is pointing everybody to the spot, that if I had to predict, there might be some type of standoff.
It's going to be like the 3 Spider-Man meme. Everybody just like,
yeah.
Maybe that's where we're going.
Yeah, or, this could be kind of pointing to Whiskey Jack's card game and the whole, standoff that was happening, and Whiskey Jack having the thought to himself, like, is this trying to tell me something? So maybe Whiskey Jack will be somehow into the fold with this as well.
Yeah, very well possible.
But
I didn't have a ton of thoughts from what I remember on this one.
Gotcha. No worries.
Just it's kind of a lot of like chatter, I guess. Um, but it's not like in the first section where we're getting all this world building and things that happened and this caused this type deal. It's just kind of like an in the moment conversation.
Right. I mean, I feel like I really enjoyed this section, and I know and recognize that to some reading it, it may seem kind of boring, but the reason I appreciate it is for the fact that it gives us more of a sense of the dynamic between these characters and like their friendship. Like I get the feeling that either Krupp and Call have some type of animosity towards each other, or like most friends, right? They just kind of pick on each other for humor's sake. So, and Crocus kind of being a whiny bitch, I feel like that has a lot to do with his interaction with Chalice. Is it Chalice? That was the maiden's name?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like he's maybe a little like butthurt or sore from that interaction because she laughed at him. So I feel like he's kind of already in this was already in this like dark kind of who am I? I don't want to be a thief. I want to marry this. I'm in love with this maiden. And then dealing with the rejection and then being told that he needs to accompany these his friends on this quest outside of the city.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got embarrassed by her, or she embarrassed him, and yeah, that's gonna sting a little bit.
So I guess it's just it ties into some other things, but it also like instead of it just being this like action packed section, it's very like almost camaraderie and like interactivity between characters that just kind of like progress their relationship with each other, which I think is important because it brings humanity to this group, especially.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you and I both know we're not gonna have just action packed after action packed chapter. There's gonna be things like this that slow it down a little bit and you know build up that bond.
Right. And this is why, kind of unrelated but related, like I guess some readers could maybe interpret this little section as like a slog section. I really hate that term. I really do not like slog. And I know that it gets a lot of like especially with the Wheel of Time, books. I've seen 7 through 10. I've seen book 10 specifically. Like there's so many ways that slog has been used to describe an author or author's works. And I yeah, maybe it might have been boring for you, but what are you looking for? Are you actually reading, or are you just like skating by because you're not entertained? So what is it that you're missing because you're not, because at face value it's maybe boring or uninteresting to you, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had anything really drawn out yet. I mean, we're 2/3 of the way through this book here, roughly 3/4. Um, but yeah, I don't really think we've had anything that I would classify as a slog yet. It's things have always been moving forward. Things haven't really come to a standstill or anything.
Right. Yeah. No, and I totally agree. I'm just saying that, some of the like posts that I've seen about, people not understanding this book, they've used that word. Not as much as like with the Wheel of Time, but I've definitely seen it come up a few times when that is part of their frustration is that it's not pack full of action every chapter. So I just appreciate it because it makes the characters more relatable to me.
Yeah, yeah, it makes them feel more real, and like you're getting to know this person, like you're getting to know a friend.
Right, exactly. Like one of the things that I notated about this section was Krupp's first bash kind of happens right as Call interrupts him about the water skins. And Krupp, and I just thought this was a clever way of taking a stab at Call's alcoholism. Krupp makes the comment about him consuming all the water, and with the unnecessary armor, the sweat that like the salty sweat would appear on Call's forehead, and what poisons would be in it. So,
I did not pick up on that at all.
Yeah, it was a very interesting way to say you drink too much. What's pouring out of your sweat because of that? You know, there's so many different ways that he could have made that a punch at Cole. But this was the way that Erickson decided to describe his alcoholism. I just thought that that was really clever. And also, when Krupp kind of rebuttals to Call again about his like Call kind of like questioning his intelligence, Krupp responds with like, yeah, I have great talents with using my brain and my right, yeah. Call makes a jab at Krupp about always stuffing his face or anything that he can fit into his mouth, and that seems to be the only talent that Krupp possesses. And then Krupp comes back with, no, I use my brain and intelligence, unlike you, Call, is pretty much what I got from that. So that's kind of where I'm like, do they have animosity between each other, or is this just like a, how dudes make fun of each other in a friend group kind of a thing,
It might even kind of border on both of those. It might, a little bit of both.
Yeah, because I know that. I mean, I feel like it's safe to say that Call. Well, no, that was actually something that we didn't talk about last chapter that we should have. So I guess kind of going back, we know that Call for sure was married to Lady Simtel. That we were right in our prediction that Call was married to a rich woman.
Yep, you called that.
Yeah, I got some gratification from that one when I read it, and I apologize that we didn't talk about it. We just totally forgot to talk about that.
I thought maybe we did, but we couldn't remember the lady's name.
Or maybe we did. I guess. Yeah, I don't know now. I'm doubting myself. I feel like we didn't, but I think it's just because we got caught up like we always do in talking about what's transpiring.
I guess I don't remember if we did or not, but for some reason it feels a little familiar in my head, but maybe who knows? I guess we'd have to go back and listen.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like we did talk about it, but I don't think we recorded the conversation. I think it was part of
that's entirely possible.
Yeah, it's all good. No worries. I guess the other thing that I had, which has nothing to do with the relationship building here, is what exactly is a bastard sword?
I think that it has to do with like the length of the sword.
Is that short or long, or like for some reason I just can't visualize what a bastard sword would be based on the meaning of both words.
Yeah, I think it's a longer sword, probably more like a two-handed. You could probably swing it with one hand, but you might be better off with two.
Is it just one of those things where like if you're fighting somebody, you're like, fucking bastard?
I am not a sword expert by any means, but I think it has something to do with how long like the handle is or how long the blade is or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Well, maybe we'll find out more. Yeah, I guess the only other thing that I'm curious about is why Rallick isn't there, because in previous chapters, as they were discussing this plan, it kind of sounded like Baruch really wanted Rallick to be there. So I'm curious as to why he's not, because I was under the assumption that he would be with this group as they went out to the Gadrobi Hills.
Yeah, he was supposed to, but something's going to be going on in the city that he wanted to stick around and make sure things were going right. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I wonder if it has anything to do with the aftermath of like the Assassin's War, or
Yeah, it could be.
the events with the Tisti assassins. And just kind of cleanup, I guess, is what I go to.
Yeah, I think that's a good word for it.
But yeah, I guess those are the only things that I really enjoyed about this section.
We ready to move on?
We're ready.
All right, this one will be pretty short here. Sari was in no hurry as she left through Jamet's gate. She did not need to keep the coin bearer in line of sight to track him. She could sense Crocus and Krupp and two others past Worrytown, and they did not seem to be in a rush. Sari was sure they were spies, and whatever they were doing was for Darujistan. She thought it was a group capable of mostly protecting the coin bearer, but they wouldn't be able to stop her. Something still bugged her, though. She felt like they were headed towards trouble, which would also threaten her. Once she was beyond Worrytown, she picked up her pace. Soon she was alone on the road, and she disappeared into her warren of shadow.
Yeah, I feel like there's maybe some foreshadowing in here with the whole she's picking up on something, and I'm just curious if maybe like she gets caught in the crossfire, and maybe it's a sorry no more sorry.
Yeah, I think this is just maybe I want to say confirmation, but more speculation that that we're gonna get these three groups meeting together at the Barrow or somewhere along the way, and it might get kind of messy.
Yeah, I feel like Lauren and Tool are probably going to be interrupted while doing this by Crocus and his whining ass and the group protecting him. But also we know that Opon is, or Crocus is Opon's, I guess, pawn or chess piece. So how much is that going to influence what happens uh in the coming chapters? But if Sari is following them and they are following or they're headed into the Gadrobi Hills looking for this barrel, which, at this point we know Lauren and Tool at this point in the chapter are also seeking. So something is converging, and what happens, I guess, is anybody's guess, but I'm really looking forward to reading what happens or what takes place.
I think it'll be messy.
Knowing the tone of this book around that kind of stuff, I would totally agree.
I guess the one question I had out of this is when Sari goes into her warren, where do you think she's going?
Ooh, that's good. I didn't pick that up. I mean, like I picked up that she went into her warren. I guess
Because I don't think she's just going to use that to travel like a couple miles to catch up to him.
very true. But I guess I just go back to when Hairlock was on the plane headed towards Darujistan, how the great ravens that he was attacking described him as like jumping into his warren, like as he was hiding. I'm wondering if that's maybe what Sari is doing. Like she's just like she doesn't need to keep sight of them. Like she can clearly track them. So maybe she can do it from her warren too, and just kind of like follow in her warren while being disguised or hidden.
Yeah, that could be.
Or
Just staying out of
right.
harm's way.
Or potentially like conversing with Amanus in Shadow Throne's realm, kind of like discussing or talking next steps.
That's a very good thought.
Yeah, good question. I didn't think that far on that one.
That was probably my biggest takeaway, I think, from that part.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That is a big takeaway. What is she doing in her warren?
Guess we'll find out, or maybe we won't. I don't know.
Right. She'll just pop out.
Either she's just gonna. Well, you know what? I have an idea now.
Ooh, what is it?
Well, we'll have to can't talk about it yet
Okay. Well,
because I think it relates to my last section. I think
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, we can swing back. I feel like we do an okay job with that.
so. Yeah, if you want to take your section here.
All right. As Lauren approached the hill, the land around her was similar. Nothing to really be set apart. Above the hill, ravens wheeled. Lauren watched as Toole strolled ahead of her. She slumped in her saddle as the mugginess of the day had gotten to her. She knew it wasn't Opon's doing, but a dread that hung in the air, the sense that what they were doing was terribly wrong. To unleash this Jaghut tyrant into the hands of one of Malazan's enemies, to trust Anomander Rake to destroy it, seemed absurd and ambitious. Toole at the base of the hill waited for the adjutant to arrive. Between his feet, Lorne saw the gray rock jutting from the earth. Toole explains that this is the Jaghut Barrow. Lorne questions the size of the stone, like one would question the size of a person's dick riding in a giant-ass truck. Toole explains to her that the stone has been there for many reasons, telling her that the rock was much larger than it appeared. Lorne sensed some anger in Toole's response and dismounted her horse. She asks how long that they would have to stay there. Toole replies until the evening passes, and tomorrow he will open the way. Lorne looks at the ravens wheeling above her, recalling that they had been with the pair for days. Shrugging this off, she prepares her camp, finds dry wood to build a fire. As the evening approached, she found a high hill and ascended to its peak. Lorne surveys the land and then sits down and waits for nightfall. It would be easy to spot campfires at this time for anyone in the surrounding area. As night fell, she walked around the summit of the hill to stretch her legs. Observing evidence of previous excavations, as well as Gadrobi herders, from as far back as to when they fashioned stone tools. On the south side, she noticed a cavern used as a quarry of some kind. Curious, she investigates further. As she crouches onward, she finds a flint spear tip, expertly crafted. She needed no further proof of the IMAS's assertions that humans had come from the IMAS. Sitting down in the quarry and leaning against the wall, Lauren starts to think to herself, thoughts of the legacy of the Talan flowing like blood through human muscle and bone. Were they destined to become the human version of the Talan? Was war all there was? Her thoughts continue with the Talan and the Jaghut. According to Toole, what had the Jaghut been? They had abandoned the concept of government, turned their backs on empires and armies and on the cycles of rise and fall, fire and rebirth, dismissive of communities, of purposes greater than themselves. Lauren realizes that the Jaghut wouldn't have started the war. With tears welling in her eyes, she says to herself, "Oh, Lucine, why we fear this Jaghut tyrant? Because he became human like us. He became like us. He enslaved, he destroyed, and he did it better than we could." She fell silent, letting the tears roll down her face. She wondered why she cried. Was it for her or Lucine? Was it for our kind? It didn't matter, as such tears have been shed before and will be shed again.
I thought it was kind of unique that this everything that we've read about Lauren, she's been just kind of described as this like hard, emotionless person, right? And here she is crying. So it's kind of unique, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like it's pretty like the section's pretty deep in my opinion because Lauren realizes in like her self-reflection that the way that Toole has described the Jaghut is that it's unlikely that they have started this war with other elder races, right? Like we know that it was the Jaghut, the Talan, and I forget what the other one was. The one that wasn't interested and just kind of like walked away. Um, which this ties in nicely to her thoughts about the Talan and humans being descendants from them. It makes me think of the saying, if you ignore history, it's doomed to repeat itself. I think that this is alluding to the Talan starting wars, as they were not always the undead, but an elder race of humans. So I guess before that they were raised undead, they were humans. They were like an elder race of humans. Died, and then for whatever reason, through magic or sorcery, have come this raised undead army. So I think that is what Lauren is having maybe an issue with and is questioning. Like, are we just doomed to repeat the mistakes of these elder races? Because if we are like what Tool has said, descendants from Talan, that just makes me associate that like the Talan aren't necessarily anything special. They're just humans risen from the grave.
I guess they're just smart zombies.
Yeah, right. Burns. No, not brains. War.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a little bit heavy chapter and dark for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, I felt, and I know that she talks about the sense of dread kind of hanging in the air earlier on in the section. Um, I thought it was interesting though, after reading this section, I could sense the dread. Like I felt dreadful for Lauren. And it just made me empathize with her a bit, kind of like what you were saying. It gives her that humanity similar kind of similar to like the story of her in the mouse quarter, right? Like I remember feeling bad when I read that, you know. As a reader, you kind of don't want to like Lauren, but you also see that she has like the soft and vulnerable side.
It's pretty small, but it's there.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So, and that's just, I find it interesting that, you want to not like Lauren, but you have this small sense of doubt as to whether, who she is as a character, I guess.
What else did you feel or think on this?
I feel like we get an exact plan on what it is that Lucine is trying to do. And it just makes so much sense to me. A very risky one, but hoping to release the Jaghut tyrant upon the world to potentially destroy and enslave, just to hopefully weaken Anomander Rake enough so that the Malazan High Mages can destroy him in his weakened state. I just thought it was super ballsy and kind of super high risk. It makes me really question Lucine. But at the end of the day, as we've talked about, Anomander Rake doesn't seem to have too many formidable opponents. So this it fell into place for me. It makes sense as to why they're taking this huge risk is because Lucine doesn't have anybody to throw against him. So why not release a Jaghut Tyrant? I have the tool, literally, to make that happen.
And I guess well, I don't know. It doesn't look good for the, kind of the common folk though, does it? Because either way, there's going to be a pretty nasty fight coming. That's probably going to involve a lot of people. So either I kind of feel like, yeah, the plan that you put out there makes sense to me. So either you're going to end up more or less enslaved to the empire, or you're going to be enslaved to the tyrant.
Right. Either way, it's the shit end of the stick. But yeah, it just goes to show how reckless and selfish Lucine is. Like, she doesn't give a shit about anybody but conquering the Malazan Empire or expanding the Malazan Empire. She will do anything to,
Yeah, and there might not be many people left at the end of it.
which, no loss to her, right? Like, she's out of harm's way.
Yeah, well, maybe if the tyrant wins, then she might be in trouble then too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I mean, if that's your only option, what else do you do, right? You have an opponent that is basically like contesting you with every city you're trying to siege, which, again, asshole move. But it's nice to kind of read like the backstory as to all of the things that unfold.
Yeah, it's nice to know that information for sure.
Yeah. It makes the payoff so much worthwhile. And I know that, again, we haven't finished the book, but I just remember having a lot of questions about these things at the very beginning of the book,
Yeah, and yeah, we're starting to see some of them. So hopefully, I'm sure that'll continue.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel a lot more confident doing these summaries because I feel like I understand. I've been following along, so to speak. So like everything's just clicking into place. Um, I guess another thing that I thought was cool was the way that Toole explains how long the stone has been there. He doesn't just give like this generic number like any other author could. He explains that it stood long before the sheets of ice covered the land, and it stood when the Rivi Plain was covered in water, but has receded to become Lake Azure. So, just with those two sentences alone, I mean, based on, I guess, one's fundamental understanding of history, can kind of visualize like how old the stone has been standing there.
Yeah, it's gone through a freaking ice age.
Right, yes.
And the stone itself seems kind of unremarkable, right? Like it's just it sounds like it's almost any other rock sticking up. Like no wonder it hasn't been found. It's something you'd probably trip over if you were just walking by.
Right, yeah. And I know that, all around this rock are, you know, little holes that have been dug in search of the barrow for however long the rumor is. Well, that's probably as long as the stone.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that's all really the thoughts that I had on this section.
I don't think I've got any either. Any additional thoughts on top of your own there?
Yeah. All right, well, I guess we can move on to our last section.
All right. Guess who's back? It's Paran. Hey, we were talking about wanting to see him last week, so
Yep.
we get a little glimpse at him here.
Yes, we were.
I know we talked about that. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
So it's Paran. He looked at Talk and asked if he had a theory on what they've been seeing. Talk has no clue, but they've seen 11 roasted birds in the last 3 hours. So it would appear that they were following someone particularly nasty. Even flies were not flocking to these dead birds. So Paran says it must be sorcery. Talk doesn't understand why the adjunct and IMS are traveling so slowly. They must know that they are being followed. I get the sense that they're referring to something else following them, and I'm trying to think back because we didn't. I feel like it must be Hairlock that's trying to track him down. We can talk about that after I'm done reading. Bren says she's an arrogant woman, and with an IMAS along, why should she worry? Talk says power draws power, and as he says this, he has a flash of light in his head. kind of like I imagine like you almost getting a migraine headache. It keeps changing, and he can almost make out an image. Bran has been pushing them hard, and even though they have an extra horse, they were almost done for. It was clear to Talk that Pran wanted to catch up to Lorne and the IMAS. He thought driven by vengeance. With Lorne dead, Pran's command would be safe, and he could meet back up with Whiskey Jack, provided they were still alive. Though Talk did have his doubts about the plan. Would Pran's sword be a match for the IMAS? Magic didn't work on them. They'd be chopped up to bits to kill them. They came across another bird, and Talk rubbed his scar, producing another image in his mind. He nearly fell off his horse, but this time he could see the image. A small shape moving incredibly fast. It was just a blur. The horses screamed, and a tear opened in the air. In the tear, he saw swirling darkness. Then it was gone. Somehow Pran didn't notice any of this. How could this be, he thought. Then the answer came to him. It was a warren. He caught up to Pran and said they were walking into a trap. Pran casually says to be prepared. Talk says it will come by way of warren. He thought Pran looked eager for this. Even his sword, named Chance, looked eager. So this was kind of my thought here from before. I wonder if what he's seeing is sorry. But at the same time, I don't remember her being described as being able to move that fast. So I also kind of, is it hairlock? But just with the swirling darkness and sorry going into her warren of shadow, that seems to make more sense to me in my head.
Ooh, I didn't even consider sorry. That's a good point. I'm leaning towards hairlock because of the roasted birds.
Yes, I do agree with that. I mean, that makes sense. He was shooting them out of the sky.
And I mean, I didn't get. I mean, you summarized it, but I could swear that during my one of my read throughs of this chapter, in his vision or image that he sees, I want to say that the word tiny figure was used. So I think that's what also is making me think that it's hairlock that is maybe setting a trap. Like maybe hairlock has been observing them following Lorne. But that's what I'm gonna stick with, is that it's hairlock. Because
I think that's probably more likely. I mean, it was just, when we were going over that last section, and I was wondering where sorry went, it just kind of dawned on me, remembering this part. And I thought maybe it could be a possibility, but I do think hairlock seems to make more sense as well.
But I mean, it's also not all out of the realm of possibility. I mean, it's not. We don't get a whole lot of description as to what is coming out of this warren. I mean, we have two entities that are essentially in a warren right now, more conclusively with sorry than hairlock. But I feel like the roasted birds are hairlock. I don't know why he would do that. I mean, I know he's crazy and he's mad, so maybe he has something against birds. I don't know.
I would put my money on hairlock, but like I said, it was just kind of a fleeting thought that came into my head.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and it very well could be both, right? Sorry and hairlock could pop out of their warrens, but I know hairlock doesn't like Paran, so I feel like if he's been observing them tracking Lorne, because he was also on his way to Darujistan, so the possibility of them, seeing each other would totally make sense to me.
I kind of forgot about how much hairlock does dislike Paran, so yeah, I think all signs are kind of pointing to that.
Yeah, but I feel like the whole talk noticing that even his sword appeared eager, this inanimate object appearing eager for whatever is to transpire kind of maybe makes me feel like it's alluding a little bit to Opan intervening here.
That's a pretty good thought.
So I guess that's just, where my thoughts go. But
I thought talks like headaches or whatever are kind of an interesting thing. Like, is he become? Sorry, the dog's just whining all over right now. Is talk? Is he becoming a seer of sorts? He's getting little flashes of the future here, or maybe he is. So that's something I want to see more on.
yeah, and I know that from previous chapters, it's not a lore, I guess lore would make more sense about, because we know Tak has one eye, and apparently the lore in the Seven Cities is that if you have one eye, and I feel like it derives from some type of trauma that you have one eye, that you are given like this, seer type ability. Looking back at reading about that lore in the Seven Cities was a little bit of foreshadowing to kind of what's unveiling here.
What else? Anything else that caught your eye in this?
No, I feel like a lot of these sections were pretty short lived, but no, I think the biggest takeaways from this last section here is Tak and Paran are definitely headed into some trouble, and I guess it's anyone's guess as to what's happening or what's going to happen, but I think you're dead on when you say that shit's about to hit the fan, because it definitely feels like that. I feel like I'm just being prepared for something big.
Yeah, I think we'll see some resolution to that by the end of this sub book here. So in the next couple chapters, I'm sure we'll see something.
Yeah, very true. But I'm excited to read on. I'm thoroughly enjoying this book, and talking about it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
But yeah,
I'm ready to get into the next chapter here.
Ready to dive in. Hopefully I'll be able to read it tonight. So I'm excited to read the next section here.
Yeah, me as well. I don't know when I'll get to it here, but hopefully before too long.
Yeah. Well, cool. I guess any more followers on Twitter at all?
Actually, yes, we have gained a couple. Let me check here real quick. We're up to 95.
Ooh, that's a little bit of a jump. I know that last time I heard we were at like 86 or 87 or something like that.
Yeah, I guess I don't remember exactly how many.
Yeah, that's exciting. But yeah, I guess the only other news as far as our social goes, I was able to get our first 8 episodes up onto YouTube. So if you would prefer to listen to them on YouTube, they are available, and I usually try to get like two episodes done a day. Granted, I haven't been very consistent with that, but it does take an enormous amount of time to get them up there. So check us out. So we can be found on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and Spotify.
Yes, and then as far as the socials, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search D&J's Epic Quest. Twitter's by far the most active. Don't seem to get much interaction on Facebook. Looks like there's a little bit on Instagram. I tried messing with that, but not really my thing. But Twitter, we're up to 75 followers now. So we're growing. Appreciate everybody following along and having a good time with us.
So give us a like, give us a subscribe. That definitely helps us in the end. So we appreciate everybody who's been listening.
Yeah, for sure. We're super happy to have everybody on board and just, I mean, obviously we love talking about this book and love talking to other people too. But it would be cool to, maybe see a review. I'm not pleading for a 5-star review or anything like that, but just some feedback on the podcast side of things. I know I listen to some other podcasts, and I know they say that rating and reviewing helps get things out to others, so makes it more discoverable. So if anybody wants to do that, whatever you feel is a fair rating, and just leave us an honest review. We'd love to read it.
Yes, we would. Yes. All right, man. Well, I guess till next time.
Talk to you later, bud.
Later, man.